It is episode 99 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy. As always, we got some college football, NFL, and some college basketball action for you in this episode. 99 episodes, Brett. Now, before we get into the hindsight with Higgins, just what a road it's been, making it almost to triple digits now.
Yeah, I mean, this is the great one, though. This one has to be the great one for my guy Wayne Gretzky, so let's get into it with some hindsight with Higgins here.
Yes, the great one truly was great. I mean, one of my favorite stats is he could have never scored a goal in a single NHL game, and he'd still lead the league in total points in the NHL career. Very impressive.
That is incredible.
But hindsight with Higgins, last week I went 3-3. Now, the Coastal Carolina Liberty game, Brett, you did raise the flag that Liberty might not be able to play. You were right. Coastal Carolina ended up having to play BYU. I did pick Coastal Carolina on that one. If you were following us on social media, you would have known that. But I'm not going to add that into my episode 98, so I went 3-3 with one void, cancel out, whatever you want to call it.
All right, yeah, but speaking of that BYU Coastal game, Higgins saved the weekend. What a game! That was so much fun, and I know that the Big Ten kind of changed their rules right before we started recording about how Ohio State will now be able to enter the Big Ten Conference Championship, but I'm still holding out. I want Texas A&M and Ohio State to meet this weekend. Just have the play-in game. It'll be amazing. It'll be unbelievable for TV. It'll be great for the schools. I mean, yeah, it stinks for the school that loses. It's a lot of pressure on one game. You don't want your season to come down to it. But wouldn't you like to know, have a definitive answer? Like, yes, we're going to the playoffs. No, we're not.
I mean, I completely agree. Texas A&M and Ohio State, if they were able to get something going, I think they absolutely should play. And interesting fact about those two schools, the halfway point, if they were looking for a neutral site in between the two campuses, would be Memphis, Tennessee.
Tennessee.
There's a few football stadiums there. I mean, it's a big enough town. I'd say they have one or two football fields.
The Liberty Bowl. Let's go.
Absolutely. But Brett, you did a little better than I did. You went 3-2, but finally we both broke our Levy Lock pick of the pods drought. Each of us covered on this one, so we'll have to duke it out at the end of the episode when we give those out. Let's move into Beginner's Boulevard, though. We're going to talk about a term that doesn't necessarily go with the betting strategies of you or myself, Brett. A martingale system, which it's a system that a bettor puts in place that whenever they lose a wager, they double the amount of their that they wagered last time. So if you bet 10 and then you lose, next time you bet 20. And it's to try to help recoup losses. It's also very similar to chasing, which is something that you and I preach against doing. I catch myself doing it every once in a while, but I have some friends that have used this martingale system. Brett, is this something that you're really familiar with at all?
No, I wouldn't recommend doing this, but it's good to talk about and learn about different types of betting strategies that are out there. Personally, I go with pretty much place the same exact bet every single time. If I feel really strongly on something, maybe I'll increase the unit size by one, at max two, but rarely am I going 5-unit max here. Higgins.
The martingale system, now that is something that was also brought in from card-style gambling. It's very familiar in blackjack, which if you have multi-decks that the dealer's using, you can maybe count cards and you can tell when a deck's going to be hot or not. So you try to play that with the martingale system to try to help recoup losses. If the deck's cold, maybe. Can't really have that hot or cold feeling with going from game to game on a Saturday always, though, so not necessarily as fluid of a betting style. Let's get into our college football, though, Brett, because we have Thursday night NFL and college football action. We got FAU and Southern Miss, and then we got some ACC action with Pitt at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and then those are two good, fun games on Thursday. I'll probably be mostly focused on the NFL, but
Same here.
No NFL on a Friday. We've got 3 games in college football. North Texas minus 10.5 at UTEP. Nevada plus 2.5 at San Jose State, but not really at San Jose State, Higgins. This game has been moved to Sam Boyd Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada, the former home of the UNLV Running Rebels and the Las Vegas Bowl before they built that brand new stadium out in Las Vegas. So interesting to note, it will be actually closer probably to Nevada than San Jose State. But that game is going on Friday night, and Arizona State minus 11.5 at Arizona.
It'll be in Nevada, that San Jose State Nevada game. It'll be in Vegas, which is in the state of Nevada. It just won't be on Nevada's campus. So maybe there's a home state advantage there for the Wolfpack. I'm not entirely sure. I bet you would be preparing for this neutral site game, though, a lot more like it's a bowl game, though, in a sense, compared to if it's just a conference matchup. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not really sure how long San Jose State has been in Vegas or what their travel schedule was going there, but I guess you want to treat it honestly, Higgins, probably as close to a normal situation as possible in your normal game day routine, but it's certainly going to be a weird one for San Jose State.
Well, as normal as possible would be playing on Saturday, which there's still plenty of those games going on, but Brett, as per usual, we do have games that are canceled, and the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart that keeps getting canceled is Cincinnati Bearcats. Their season has been thrown off the rails the past few weeks as their games keep getting canceled. This one was going to be a ranked matchup against Tulsa, which would have really helped them out after seeing the Coastal Carolina BYU game last week, which was a ranked game. Instead, Cincinnati kind of falls out of the eye of the commission and those that are doing the college football playoff rankings. And Coastal Carolina, who just got a good win last week, now is traveling to Troy to try to help maybe finish off that season that they started off so strong. And I'm going to ride with Coastal Carolina. I mean, they won last week. They covered last week, and if you've listened to us on Next Best Bet, you have heard from me say before, Coastal Carolina has yet to fail and cover the spread. They have covered every single week. So why would I think this week's going to be any different against a 5-5 team like Troy? Coastal Carolina is a 13.5 point favorite. I see them winning by 2 touchdowns, so put me on the Chanticleers.
Yeah, I guess just to play devil's advocate, not to disagree with you, just why would they maybe not cover? I don't know. Maybe they were so hyped for last week, the biggest game in school history. Maybe it is a little bit of a letdown spot, 2 touchdowns, but I'm with you. I like Coastal a lot. They're definitely in play for a New Year's Six bowl game, so they're going to need to play well and play hard in every win. And just a quick note on that Cincinnati game, Higgins. It's actually the second time it's been delayed due to COVID because I was on it one of our early podcasts. I want to say like week 3 of the college football season, and it was delayed then because of Tulsa's COVID issues, now because of Cincinnati. So that game just never stood a chance getting off the ground, I guess.
Yeah, the Bearcats have really run into some obstacles in November and now into December, which has thrown a fantastic season. I wouldn't say necessarily into the toilet, into the tank, but it's getting close to having those playoff hopes that they were kind of formulating get flushed away. Another game that you and I are both going to be on, though, Brett, is USC versus UCLA, the Battle of Los Angeles, USC versus UCLA. And so I'm going to go with UCLA. Plus 2.5 on the spread right now. They're the home team, slight underdogs, but you know what? The Bruins, they've covered 4 straight games. USC, they are 1-2 against the spread when they're the favorite. Now, they've covered their 2 most recent games. They are 4-0, and 2.5 points is not that big of a spread. I understand that. So The evidence might say USC continues to stay undefeated, maybe covers by a field goal. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think UCLA has been able to play close. They've been able to keep it tight, and maybe this is where they squeak one out. I mean, they're 4-1 against the spread this year. They've played really well.
Yeah, I'm on USC here, Higgins. I'm all in on the Trojans. I think they're going to handle business. UCLA surprised me this year with how well they've played recently. I just don't trust them. USC also won pretty handedly last year, so I'm going with the Trojans and Keldon Slovis. Fight on!
Yes, the USC UCLA game was the last game of the season last year for both programs, and that was a 52-35 win for USC. Little bit different though. Little bit different teams, much different spread this year, so I'll be interested to see how this kind of plays out in Southern California.
Yeah, it will be interesting to watch. We're on some more games on Saturday as you're on Oklahoma State at Baylor.
Yes, Oklahoma State at Baylor. It's an interesting game because you look at it and you got 6-3 Cowboys versus a 2-6 Bears program, and I mean everyone should just assume that the ranked Oklahoma State team should win this, and with a 4.5 point spread, that they would probably cover. But I don't think they're going to because they've been abysmal against the spread this year. They're 6-3 with a record. They're 3-6 against the spread this year. And if you look at how Baylor has played recently, they aren't losing by a lot. So they're 1-2 in their past 3 games. They lost to Texas Tech 24-23. Then they beat Kansas State 32-31. Then they lost to number 11 Oklahoma last week 27-14. Now that one's the outlier, but they've played some really close games, and even before that, it was a 7-point game against Iowa State. It was a 10-point game against TCU. These are competitive games, so I don't think Baylor being 2-6 necessarily throws them out of this, and that's why this spread is closer. Might be a trap game that you see a lot of people on Oklahoma State right now. 66% of the money is on Oklahoma State, but I'm being a bit of a contrarian here, and I think that Baylor's going to cover it because I think Vegas knows something. The sports book typically knows something. If it looks weird, typically it is weird for a reason.
All right. Yeah, I don't know enough about either of those teams. I haven't watched enough to be on that game. I bet on against Oklahoma State once or twice, so I guess I knew enough that they weren't good against the spread, Higgins. But I'm on the last game of the night, to be honest. UNLV at Hawaii. We always say the over always hits on the island, so I'm going over 57.5 because it's the last game of the year on the island, Higgins. And if you're not on the over, like, why are you even sports gambling? This is the most fun bet of the day. This is the Hail Mary, save me, save the day, right? Everyone
Well,
plays the Hawaii Island games.
and as has become customary with me on the West Coast, I will stay up and watch to see if that's going to cash for you, Brett. Don't worry, you'll have someone up rooting for your bet.
Thank you, Higgins. I need all the fans I can get out there.
And then some other interesting games that we have going on this weekend. I mean, there's a ranked matchup between North Carolina and Miami, number 17 versus number 10. Miami, a 2.5 point favorite there. I'm not sure what side I'd want to be on there. And then Illinois at Northwestern. Illinois shouldn't give Northwestern a ton of trouble, but Northwestern's got the spotlight on them of potentially playing Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game now. And with the obstacles of the Big Ten being cleared, who knows where the Wildcats players' heads are at? Maybe they're not in it for this game against the Fighting Illini. Maybe they're already trying to look ahead towards the Buckeyes because that's a hell of a matchup for that program. It would be very tough. I don't know how that's going to go. And then I'd say the other game is also the Georgia-Missouri game, which is another top 25 matchup. That should be a good one as well.
Yeah, I mean, Illinois Northwestern, stop hating on my Fighting Reese Davises. They're the team, man. They're going to handle business in this rivalry game. I'm not betting it because I actually respect rivalry games and I just assume they're going to be closer than 2 touchdowns. But I love Northwestern so much, I'm not touching Illinois. And, Ohio State shouldn't be expecting a cakewalk on Northwestern. Northwestern was in this game a year ago. It did not go very well for them. Now they're back. I think they're a little bit better. So I'm excited for that Big Ten championship game. But I'm more excited probably for this Army Navy game this weekend, Higgins.
Oh, that's always a classic game. I mean, whether it's an up year, a down year for those programs, Army Navy is something that you at least have to turn on and watch a little bit of.
Yeah, 100%. I will absolutely be turning in. The spread in this one, Navy 6.5 point favorites. Their helmets this year kind of look like the ocean, I think. So unique look. There's always really cool uniforms in this game. Hopefully, we'll have the cadets in the stands. I'm not sure about that, but I'm tuning in. The over under in this one is 37.5. Part of me is rooting for the over, but I think it's going to hit the under because when you see an under that low, it's fishy and you're just like, it has to go over, and usually it goes under.
Well, so fill in the blanks for me, Brett. Go blank, beat blank.
Ooh, I'm going to say go Army, beat Navy.
Go Army, beat Navy. Okay, I guess by the rule of the pillars, that means I have to say go Navy, beat Army then. And we just picked our sides for that matchup for this weekend. Might not have a bet out yet on it, but who knows? Maybe we do pick something on Saturday between you and I.
There we go.
Let's move on to our money line magic, though, Brett, because as much as college basketball has thrown me into some temper tantrums already this season, there have been some fantastic games, some absolute barn burner matches, including this Creighton versus Kansas game, which was back and forth, had multiple lead changes. I mean, Creighton kind of held on to it early, but Kansas stuck around, and then Kansas would take it and Creighton would stick around. It was just back and forth. Really, really a great game that you could see why these are two top 10 teams.
Yeah, definitely a great showing for these two top 10 teams. And the last 2 minutes were so exciting, Higgins. I definitely thought it was worthy of a money line magic. With about 139 remaining in the game, Marcus Gilbert would make a layup for Kansas out of a timeout to extend Kansas's lead to 5. That's as big as it would get, Higgins. That's as big as their lead would get because Denzel Mahoney would hit a layup and a 3 within the next 30 seconds, tied at 70 apiece. Minute left, Higgins. Again, Kansas would execute out of the timeout. Jalen Wilson would get a 3, so a 3-point lead. We'd have some craziness ensue here, but eventually Marcus Zagowski would get fouled shooting a 3 with 1.5 seconds remaining.
Oof. And I did not watch this game live, but if you watched the highlights, the tension was so apparent that there were parents that were in the stands, and there was just a close up on who I can only assume was Marcus Zagowski's mother, whose head was in her hands as he was preparing to shoot those free throws. She was so nervous.
Yeah, the kid had some balls. He made the first one, swished the second one.
So you'd think the third was going to be good.
You
Typically, you make the first and the second one, you think the third he's in a rhythm that it was going to fall.
you were hoping, but unfortunately he missed it, and time expires. Kansas walks off with a 1-point win at home.
A 1-point win at home, and for those that may not know, Creighton is in Omaha, so this does have a bit more of a location rivalry than some people outside of the Midwest may realize. Not necessarily the same level of programs always, but both have their stories with in their basketball programs. And this is absolutely a matchup that we could see again later on, potentially in a postseason tournament type scenario that could very easily go to Creighton, could very easily go to Kansas, or could just be a completely different game where we see a blowout that just doesn't make sense compared to this game that we just had as our moneyline magic.
I mean, it was a great game. It was so much fun to watch. We gave you the last 2 minutes, but hopefully everyone saw the highlights and hopefully everyone made some money. But I'm going to guess a lot of people didn't make money on this team I'm about to shout out here, Higgins, because sticking in the state of Kansas, I got ahead of myself there. But sticking in the state of Kansas, Fort Hays State became the first team in 20 years from a Division II level to beat a Power 5 school when they beat Kansas State on Tuesday. Higgins, what a moment for 0-3 Fort Hays State to go into Manhattan, Kansas, and walk out with a victory.
So, yes, that is a very, very impressive win for Fort Hays State. However, no one should have lost money on that because the line was actually pulled on that because Kansas State had to play without their head coach and one of their assistant coaches who were in COVID-19 protocols. So, before that happened, Kansas State was a double-digit favorite in this game, and then Fort Hays ended up winning by double digits, I believe, in an amazing turnaround, a fantastic win. But like they say in football, any given Sunday, in basketball, I mean, it's any shooter's day, and you can show up to the gym and you can be cold. It doesn't matter if you're the best player that's projected to be number one pick next year or you're a walk on. Sometimes you're hot and sometimes you're cold. And today's episode is brought to you by Naked Nutrition. Naked Nutrition provides you with pure protein powders and supplements to help you meet your nutrition and fitness goals. Naked Nutrition is completely transparent about their ingredients. That way you know exactly what is going into your body. No additives mean your body gets more of what it needs, and I suggest checking out all the amazing products on their website. Right now you can get 10% off your first purchase at nakednutrition.com by using the code POD. That's 10% off using the code POD for first-time customers. Take your nutrition to the next level with Naked Nutrition. Now, Brett, on to the NFL. We talked about the Thursday night games that are going on in college football, but you and I both said our attention will probably be directed at the Thursday night NFL game, and I think with good reason too, because this is probably the first time in a while that the New England Patriots in Week 14 are probably in a must-win scenario for their playoff hopes.
Yeah, I guess it's a fair way to put it, Higgins. That makes a lot of sense. And, uh, you're always going to watch the game you have some money on, and this is where we're putting our money.
Absolutely. I'm putting my money in a few different spots with this. Now, I mentioned that New England has something to play for. They're sitting in third in their division. They're outside the wild card picture looking in, so there's some work to be done in the next 4 games if they are to try to keep that playoff streak alive with Tom Brady's departure. So, with that being said, New England already played in Los Angeles last week. It didn't affect them. They won 45-0. So why should I think the travel's going to affect them this week? If they even did travel back to the East just to come right back for a short week, I don't think they probably did. But the Patriots are 5-point underdogs after a 45-0 blowout of the Chargers last week. I'm going to take the Patriots +5 because they got more to play for. The Rams have not really been playing up to snuff. They won last week, but they lost the week before against San Fran, who's at the bottom of the NFC West. So the Patriots +5 feels good to me. And then you know what? I'm also taking the under here, Brett. And it's just because if you look at the stats, both of these teams are 4-8 on the season when it comes to over-unders. 4 overs, 8 unders. The Rams, at one point in their season, had 6 consecutive unders. The Patriots are in the midst of a streak of 4 consecutive unders. And the Rams, in all 5 of their home games so far this year, have hit the under. All signs point to under 45.5, so I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to take it.
Um, I'm glad that we record this podcast from opposite coasts because I think you need a COVID test. Jake Higgins is betting an under. Someone make sure he's not sick. I don't know what to do here. Like, do we end the podcast? Should I call an ambulance? What's
I'm
happening?
I'm not burning up. I'm feeling my forehead. I'm feeling okay. So
Okay, so he's picking an under. Okay, there we go. Um, yeah, I'm gonna find myself on this game too, Higgins, but not in a normal way that I would bet it. I'm going in on a teaser, and the only thing you tease is yourself. But I'm going New England plus 11 and a half. The Jets plus 20. Kansas City minus point 0.5 for plus 130. But right now I'm going to talk about New England plus 11 and a half. Kind of what you're saying. I think they're motivated. To be honest with you, I don't think they came back to the East Coast. That would be weird. Like, I definitely think they stayed out there and stayed
well,
in the time zone and stayed adjusted and all that.
yeah, it's their second game in Los Angeles in the span of
Right.
5 days. It doesn't make sense for them to go back to New England just to fly right back to Los Angeles for
Right.
a Thursday
So
game.
I have no I'm not really too concerned about that. Hopefully they've all been getting good sleep. Like, the hotel beds are nice and comfy and they're ready to go. But uh, I'm just gonna take the reason I'm taking it in a teaser is so I just get across some lines that I want to get across. I'd like to be across that 7. So I'd rather have 7 points with New England. And the teaser at plus 6.5 points on all these spreads gets me actually across a 2 possession game with 10. So just added bonus of getting across some key numbers there.
Yeah, and Kansas City at minus zero point 0.5. I mean, that's a great pick to get whenever you can, of basically getting a Chiefs money line pick. But Jets plus 20, I mean, at this point, I don't care what the spread is for the Jets. Anything is possible. As we've seen last week, the Jets nearly pulled off a win before they decided to blitz on the final play of the game, and the Raiders came up with an upset victory. But at the same time, I don't know if 20 points is safe for the Jets either, so throwing them into that teaser to me is a little bit of a bold move.
Well, they better be able to cover 20 because I've also got them covering 13 and a half. You talked about last week's games. Well, I want to talk about last week's games for the Seahawks too because the Giants went in there with Colt McCoy, who I don't know if he had won a football game in 3 years,
Doesn't matter.
and won a football game.
He was the winningest college football player before Marcus Mariota, and that's all that matters.
That's it.
That's
Yeah,
all that
I saw
matters.
another great stat. Russell Wilson never finished higher than ninth in Heisman voting, and Colt McCoy finished second twice. So clearly, Colt McCoy is the better player. But the New York Jets going to Seattle, I think Jamal Adams is going to be hyped up. I don't know how great the Seattle defense is. Honestly, the offense was questionable last week. The Jets offense has put up 27 points or more every week. They've had their 3 top wide receivers available. They should have them available again this week. So I'm pretty high on the Jets covering this 2 touchdowns. I don't love picking the Jets. Like, it's yucky. I really don't like it, but a backdoor cover on 2 touchdowns is certainly within the realm of possibilities, Higgins.
Yes, and the backdoor covers hopefully what you are playing for there. In my opinion, I guess that's what you'd probably be playing with or for. I am going to be on the opposite side of one of your teaser picks, though. Dolphins plus 7.5 against the Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs are going to win this game. It's going to help them be able to shore up that top spot in the AFC, which Pittsburgh losing puts the Chiefs in a great spot to grab that top overall spot, home field advantage in the playoffs, and all that comes with it. But Miami in this game, like I said, New England has a lot to play for. Miami is still trying to chase down Buffalo, and they're trying to hold off New England, and they're trying to grab a wild card spot if they can't catch Buffalo. There's a lot of pressure on Miami right here. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and get a win, but I'm not going to expect it. I'm not going to bet them on the money line, so I'm taking them at plus 7.5, and hopefully it stays within a touchdown for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Kansas City basically on the money line, so theoretically we could both win on this one, Higgins. There's a nice 6 point middle there for us.
Yes, and the
Seven
vig
point
on
middle, actually.
the vig on the spread is actually pretty interesting right now. Kansas City minus 7.5 at plus 102. Miami's plus 7.5 at minus 122. So that line's probably going to move in Oregon here pretty soon. So I'm going to actually take that after we're done recording this, Brett, instead of on Sunday, the day of, like we have normally been doing. And that's just because I like that spread being over 7, and who knows if it goes up to 8 is probably where it would have to go for it to get back to a minus 110 on each side, but then more money can get through it in Kansas City, and who knows where it goes. So I'm just going to take the plus 7.5 right now and just deal with it like that.
All right, there you go. Do have one more lean, Higgins. I am leaning Minnesota versus the Bucks. They're getting 6.5 points. Minnesota's fighting for their playoff lives, and Tampa Bay has not looked very impressive of late. I know they're coming off their bye week, which hopefully they got right, but 6.5 points for Minnesota, who kind of struggled with Jacksonville last week. Hopefully they got regrouped in practice this week, re-energized, knowing that they need to win pretty much 3 of their next 4 games to make the postseason. I expect Minnesota to come out pretty fired up in this one, Higgins. I think 6.5's a lot. I'm not ready to bet it yet. I plan on betting some college basketball throughout the week that I may have more interest in. So, assuming I do okay on that, I should find myself on Minnesota plus 6.5 on Sunday.
Well, I love that Minnesota bet, but for reasons off of the field. So Tom Brady's mind may not entirely be on football right now because a few days ago, earlier this week, Brett, don't know if you saw this news, but security alarms went off at Tom Brady's mansion in Massachusetts because a drunk homeless man broke in and fell asleep on his couch.
Well,
So
I
Tom Brady
mean,
may have been dealing with some insurance people, may have been dealing with the cops and getting the tapes from his security cameras to the police station and all that. I don't know if he's necessarily had the time to focus solely on the playbook and the game plan for this week. So I like the pick of Minnesota there, with Brady's mind being a little elsewhere, perhaps.
are there drunk homeless people in Newton, Mass? I had no idea. Didn't he put his Newton? I thought he put his Massachusetts home on the market. I guess it didn't sell. Oh, what is going on? I did not hear about that. That's crazy.
And then one last pick for this game, Brett, is Washington versus San Fran. And I'm going to take the 49ers minus 3 because, I mean, Washington did get that win last week, but it didn't really impress me like it probably should have. Pittsburgh, I think, is the worst 11-0 team that we have seen in years, maybe ever in the NFL. Pittsburgh has not really been impressive. They've been able to squeak out a lot of wins. So Washington knocking down the last undefeated team, while impressive, is not as impressive as it necessarily should be. San Fran at 5-7, they just got their running game back last week. That loss to Buffalo, I think, more says a lot about Josh Allen than does about the San Fran team that has been just riddled with injuries. So I'm taking San Fran minus 3. I think they're taking another step in the right direction this week, having their offense back on their feet, getting an easier opponent like Washington compared to Buffalo. I think 3 points is not too much to cover, so the 49ers minus 3 at home should not be a problem, even though they're not going to be playing in San Francisco and they're going to be playing in Arizona.
Yeah, again, I'm staying away from this one simply because of that. It's just been. They talked about it during the last game, the Bills game, how strange it's been for the 49ers. Like, they've all been basically locked in their hotel rooms and they don't really like it and whatever. And I mean, that's just not a great mindset. But, like, I'm not going to bet on Washington here. So, this is a stay away game for me, for sure.
And then a few other interesting games that are going on. I was really tempted on this Titans Jaguars game. Did not end up pulling the trigger on Titans minus 7.5. That was a little high for me. If it drops under 7, though, I could see myself taking that potentially. And then this Colts Raiders game, I really did not know what to make of it. I like this Colts team. They've kind of made me a believer in recent weeks. The Raiders should come back focused after escaping with a win against the Jets last week, but who knows how they respond? I'm really not sure, so I'm staying away from that as well. And then Taysom Hill versus Jalen Hurts, the battle of the backup quarterbacks. That should be fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean that should be interesting. I don't Is Drew Brees back this week? I'm not sure, so I'll have to
I
keep
have
my
not
eyes
heard that
out.
yet.
Yeah, I'll have to keep my eyes out on that. I knew there was a chance that he could be back this week, so we'll have to see what happens there. One that I'm keeping my eye on, Higgins, is Steelers plus 2.5 versus the Bills. I'm not sold that the Steelers are done yet. Bills looked great last week. Steelers didn't, so I understand why the line is where it is. But I might have just taken the dog, whoever it was in that game, because really that's a 50-50 game.
So I just looked up Drew Brees' injury status. He's still on the IR right now, which so they don't have to update whether he's questionable or not until game day necessarily. But according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, he said, quote, Drew Brees won't practice much, if at all, on Wednesday. So
All right, so
maybe
maybe
one
more
more
Taysom
week.
Hill. Maybe more
Maybe one
Taysom
more
Hill.
week. Maybe New Orleans, who's already clinched their playoff spot, is going to see if they can secure that first round bye without having to put Breeze out there and just give their 40-plus-year-old quarterback some additional time to recover. I mean, he cracked multiple ribs and punctured a lung, so he could use more than the time he's already had, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he could. He wouldn't hate an extra week of healing. I'm sure, but sometimes these competitors, Higgins, they're not always thinking about that. They just want to get back on the field, right? So we'll see what happens there. You know what, Taysom Hill's certainly played well enough, so there's no reason not to trust the Saints. But I do expect the Eagles to have maybe a little bit more of a spark with Jalen Hurts. They looked a little bit better with him, I think.
Yeah, they did. I think it also kind of cements the point that I made on a previous episode of I thought Carson Wentz was the wrong decision for the Eagles when they decided to re-sign him over Nick Foles the first time, and it looks like that experiment may be about over. I do agree with what Jason Kelsey came out and said, though, of with the amount that that offense has failed, Carson Wentz is taking a lot of the blame, but that falls on everybody on that offense. It's not just the quarterback's fault for the output that you've seen with the Philadelphia Eagles, which I would agree to. There's been a lot of issues in Philadelphia overall, and it can't all fall on Carson Wentz's back. At the same time, when you're the captain, you're the quarterback, you're the highest paid player, fair amount of the attention's going to go to you.
Yeah, I think all things said there are very true.
So before we get out of here, let's jump into the college basketball and just give a quick preview here real quick. Thursday's games, Brett, we don't have any picks to give out. However, maybe some interesting parlay possibilities. North Dakota State versus South Dakota State. North Dakota versus South Dakota. So you can pick some Dakotas, decide which one's going to win, pull them together, and we will find out which one's better, South Dakota or North Dakota.
Everyone gets a Dakota. Those games going on in Sioux Falls at a neutral site at the
Which is
I
in
forget,
South Dakota.
South Dakota. Okay, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So maybe an advantage for South Dakota State and South Dakota there. The big game of the night, though, Thursday, Higgins, San Diego State, Arizona State. Probably going to find myself on that one because I need something to watch after the football game or during the commercial breaks.
The Dakotas don't interest you? I heard they're playing the winner gets Mount Rushmore.
Winner gets Mount Rushmore. They just pick it up in movement.
No, they're just going to redraw the lines. There's not a lot of people that are going to be affected by that, so they're just going to
Not
redraw the
very
lines.
many people will be affected. All right. Well, moving on to Friday before we offend any more people in the Dakotas. Uh, St. John's at Seton Hall, Nebraska at Creighton for the Battle of Nebraska.
It's
Villanova at
Omaha versus Lincoln.
Omaha
Battle of the
versus
two big
Lincoln.
cities.
There There it is. Nova at Georgetown, classic Big East game. Iowa State versus Iowa, the Battle of Iowa, and Marquette UCLA. So some good ones on Friday night for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, Nebraska Creighton, that should be a great one. Creighton should obviously be the favorite in that one. And then anytime Nova and Georgetown meet up, it's always a fantastic game. It's always worth watching.
Lots of fun. Saturday we got some good ones. Florida State, Mississippi State versus Dayton, playing at a neutral site game. Notre Dame at Kentucky. Cincinnati travels to Tennessee. That game will have my eyes on it. Illinois and Missouri renew an old rivalry, and Utah BYU in one of the biggest rivalries in college sports, and I look forward to that.
Illinois has impressed me a lot this year. That their win over Duke on Tuesday night was a superb win. And then, Brett, if Cincinnati were to upset Tennessee, I think that win should go and help the Cincinnati football team's rankings. They beat an SEC team.
Well,
It would be the biggest win of the Bearcats season.
What if BYU wins the Holy War against Utah? Does that help their football team beating a
Yes.
Pac-12 school? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It only works for mid-majors, though.
Only works for mid-major. So Notre Dame beating Kentucky does not help Notre Dame. Notre Dame did not get an SEC football win. Got it. Okay, understood. Moving on to Sunday. Richmond, number 19 in the country, at West Virginia, number 11, must watch. Texas, number 13, at number 2, Baylor, must watch. It's going to be tough with all the football, but at least something to flip through during the commercials. Stanford, USC, Penn State, Michigan, St. John's, Georgetown. Georgetown playing all these Big East classics this weekend.
Now, Richmond is a team that I remember you were very high on last year, that you really liked last year. For those that may not be very familiar with them, I believe they are the Spiders or the Black Widows.
You're right, the Spiders. Roll Spides.
So, what should people expect if they were to tune into that Richmond West Virginia game? You might know about Bob Huggins and the Mountaineers. What should they know about the Richmond Spites?
Well, they're a good team, man. They beat Kentucky this year at Rupp Arena, so they've played in these environments and won. There are a lot of upperclassmen, a lot of guard play, so it should be interesting. They have a lot of ball handlers, a lot of kids who can score, fifth-year senior big, so Richmond's a good team. It's them and St. Louis in the class of the A10 this year, Higgins.
Okay, so that should be interesting. And then Texas versus Baylor is Battle of Texas. Biggest team wins. That's how Texas works.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, that's a hell of a game. It's a shame it's on an NFL Sunday, especially in Texas of all places, because Texas is really, really good and not getting talked about enough. Baylor might be truly the second best team in the country behind Gonzaga.
Yep, and then like I said, we don't have any picks on those college basketball games, but we'll probably give some day of as those lines do come out. So make sure to follow us on social media at NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page. Before we get out of here, Levy Locks and Pick of the Pods. Brett, we both won our Levy Locks this past episode. We both lost the week before and the week before that, but you went 3-2 this past episode. I went 3-3, so I'll give you the honors. You start us off.
You're so kind. Well, I'm going to be less kind to you, and unfortunately, my Levy lock is coming at your expense. USC -2.5. I just don't trust Chip Kelly in this one, Higgins, and I'm going with my guy Keldon Slovis. USC's looked pretty good this year. I know week 1 was a hell of a miraculous win, but since that moment, this team has been pretty consistent, really good, and boy, they looked good last week against Washington State, so they should be flying in with a lot of confidence, feeling good.
I like UCLA. Like I said, they covered 4 straight games, so we'll see where your Levy lock ends. My pick of the pod, though, is going to be on a team that I have said multiple times on this podcast has not lost against the spread yet this season. Coastal Carolina, the
The New York Giants?
Close, but no. Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers, they just upset BYU last week with no notice. This week they're traveling to face the 505 Troy Trojans, who are 4-6 against the spread. Coastal Carolina minus 13.5. If it got above 2 full scores, I don't know if I'd be taking this, but minus 13.5 I feel confident with, and I think Coastal Carolina is going to improve to 11-0, continue to try to squeeze that name into the conversation for a college football playoff push. But we'll see. They need some defined wins, especially against a 5-5 team like this. They need some big wins, something bigger than 2 scores. So if Coastal Carolina wants to get the committee's attention for the college football playoffs, they need to cover this game by a lot.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's watch some football this weekend, Higgins.
Well, like I said, we'll also have some picks on our social media, so make sure to follow us there at NBBPod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. This has been episode 99 of the Next Best Bet. It's been the great one. Next episode is going to be 3 digits, the Hundo episode. For Brett, I'm Jake. This has been the Next Best Bet, and we'll talk to you again after the weekend.